Last time we talked back in the spring, but prior to that, it'd been a number of years since we connected. We knew each other when I was pastoring in Oak Ridge, Tennessee. He was youth pastor in a church in Knoxville, West Knoxville, not too far away. And one of the the last memory I have of connecting was, for some reason, I was at a restaurant having breakfast with somebody. I don't even know if it was my wife. I just remember that I was walking out, and you were there at this restaurant, coffee shop, or whatever it was, and you were feverishly working on something. And it was a Monday morning, and I greeted you, and he said, "Oh, hey, how you doing?" And you were depressed. You were terribly depressed. And I said, "What's going on? What's the matter?" He said, "Well, today's payday, and I had to pay all the bills, and there's not anything left hardly." Oh, well. Anyway, so it's been a long time since we were connected in Tennessee, and look forward to this reconnection time for us personally, but especially look forward to the ministry of the Word. And I'll let him come and tell you about that ministry, and then he's going to share some thoughts as well.
Well, here, as a thank you, this is a bestseller. I sold, I think, maybe 5 of these. No, I'm just kidding. No, this is from our series here, and I'll have this, and I'll just give this to you, just give it to your wife as well. Okay. These are the books. When we first started our ministry, we have 2 books on heaven, and these are based on the most asked questions during the different, when I travel and things like that. And I wanted to give these to you, and shake your hands first here, and then give these, and I'm saying, not that these are expensive, but if I was to sell these online, thousands of dollars, and so you really cleaned up. No, I'm just kidding. And I want to thank you. And so, friends, what we're going to do is I'm going to give some more away. I didn't bring those to sell. I'm not really into that. But if you sign up for our newsletter, each day that we have a meeting, we're going to give away one of the books and everything. Again, I'll pick them out at random, and the sign-ups are over there on the table. You'll see out there. Thank you very much, Brian. I appreciate that. And then our third book, thank the Lord, it took almost 2 years. Those 2 we put out within 1 year. The third book is a holiday edition. It has just gone to our final editor, and it is being worked on. And by November 1st, we're making 7 books in this Heaven is Home series. Book number 3 is a Christmas edition, which is an Advent calendar. If you purchase it, you'll be able to read with your family or on your own from December 1st through December 25th. It's a nativity reading with a heavenly perspective. It goes both from the nativity story of Mark and Luke, and then also brings in eternal truths in that. And so I appreciate your prayers that would be done decently and in order. And if you'd like that, we don't have a warehouse at our ministry. I'm the only one on staff. And so if you'd like one, it'll be available November 1st on Amazon. And the name of it is Heaven and Advent. Heaven and Advent. And I'll tell you more about that too. Well, I've got to tell you this first of all. Pastor Bice has been so nice to receive the different boxes of the books I've sent on ahead. And Pastor Brian, I'm not exaggerating this at all. I ordered these books, and rather than me carrying them in the car and I might forget them, I sent them on ahead. I went to Amazon to order through a special order that I have with these books, and I sent them on. And as I was paying for them through our ministry, it said, you have 3 orders. This is absolute truth, friends. And it said, you have this section of books and this section of books and Clairol hair coloring. And I thought, what? My daughter, and then I remembered, what? And it's gone. It's going on through. And I thought, what? My daughter was talking with me. She's dating a boy right now. She's all excited. And she came to me and she said, Dad, she's a sophomore at Bob Jones University. What if I change my hair? She's blonde. Change it to a light brown. And I said, well, okay. Would Andrew be in favor of that or what? And she says, yeah. And I said, well, that's fine. So I think she put the hair coloring on. I don't know how it tagged in. And I'm thinking, great, with us. This was not a hint, all right? This is a mistake, but it is, I'm telling you, it's going to be here Monday. And I thought, oh, I've got to tell you before we get here, or you're going to think I'm trying to mess with you or something like that, too. And then I got up this morning, I was telling our friends over here, I got to the hotel this morning, I got up, thought, man, I'm going to get breakfast, get over here, get all my notes ready to share with you. And I walked on down there, charged up and everything, and nobody's there, and they hadn't gotten breakfast ready. And a nice hotel, and I sat around, another man waved to me, and I waved, the place is dark. I turned on the lights, sitting there. I went over and made myself a coffee sitting there, and finally I went over to the desk, I said, I'm sorry, is there a problem here? When does breakfast open? They said 7. I said, well, it's 7. And they said, no, it's 6. I forgot the time zone change. So I had an hour to sit around and wait for breakfast, and so I went back and everything. So that's one of the things I want to share with you today is talking about time. But this morning, Pastor, what time do I finish this one time? 20 after, okay, I'll watch it very carefully here. I want to introduce myself, but also get right into it. I found it very irrelevant. You're here not to hear about the messenger, but to hear the message. And I'm very committed to that. And I want to share that with you. And when we get going, but you might want to know some of my background, why I started this. During COVID, I was actually considering retiring. I had been teaching both at a college prep academy in Knoxville, Tennessee, called Grace Baptist Academy, Grace Christian Academy, and then also as an adjunct professor in the Knoxville area for King University up in Bristol, teaching a course on Christianity. And I was considering that, and during the time, but let me back you up even further. While I was teaching, I'd been teaching Bible in the academy setting or in the college setting for the better part of, total I've been teaching over 30 years. And I think it was 20 years that I had been teaching. I came home late afternoon, early evening, and I came into our house. We lived in Knoxville at the time, then before we moved to Oak Ridge, Tennessee. And I received a phone call from my brother, the potter, who you'll see his work over there, and he's very quiet. So when I answered the phone, he was yelling. And my next oldest brother, never yells. And I thought he was messing around. And he kept saying, did you hear? Did you hear? Bruce is gone, Bruce is gone. And I thought, why would I hear this? And who is Bruce? And I said, I'm sorry, Bruce who? He goes, our brother, our brother. Now, at the time, I was in my mid-50s. And I said, no, it was even early 50s. And I said, who are you talking about? He goes, Bruce, our brother, our oldest brother. And I was 52 at the time, Bruce is 56. He said, Bruce had a stroke and he's dead, he's dead. Brent was just blurring, he just heard, and he called me immediately. And now I have been teaching psychology and sociology as well for over a decade and a half. And we actually talked about the stages of grief and psychologically what person goes through when they hit a shock such as this, and maybe you have studied this or you're familiar with this. And the first thing that I always tell them is you're going to deny it. It's a shock and disbelief. And I did exactly the same thing. I said, oh, I don't believe you. I do not believe you. He's not. He goes, I'm telling you, he is gone, he is gone. Well, I'm not going to elaborate on the story. Well, then I said, I'm going to call his house in Florida. And if he's not messing around, because my brother's a prankster, my oldest brother, if he's not a prankster, I'm going to call, and if his widow answers or she answers, then I'll know. And when I did, she answered, then I found out it was not a prank. My brother had prepared for work down in northern Florida, and he had had such a massive stroke, the doctor told us that he was, this is the quote from the doctor, he was dead before his body hit the floor. Instantaneous, a cardiac arrest, which was lightning fast. And they said, mister, he did not experience any pain. I mean, he was, it just absolutely just took his life immediately. My parents, I come from a family of 12. Even my parents were alive at the time. And I cannot tell you the trauma, the shock that I had. I was so devastated that my wife said, well, are you going to stay home? And I said, oh, I can't stay home and look at the walls. And like an idiot, I went to work the next day. I went to the school. Well, I was falling apart over every class. And this is really something else. The faculty and the students kept coming over and consoling me. And I was in pieces for days. And then I went down to the funeral. Well, actually, it was only one day, because then they said, well, the funeral's going to be XYZ, time and place and everything like that, in a meeting hall. And so my sons met me. And my son drove us down there 13 hours straight. As we pulled into the meeting hall, there where it was, not a church, but a meeting hall. And I walked in, and I'm wearing something similar to what I'm wearing now out of respect to find my sister, who's now been widowed. She walked on over, absolutely no embellishment on this either. I walked in, and she walked over, little girl, okay? She says, Brad, it's so good to have you here. We're ready. And I said, I'm sorry, ready. And everybody gets up and starts walking. And I'm, why is everybody walking toward me? It was a central meeting area. And then she went over, and she put her arm around me, so I had my arm around her, all right? Then somebody, I don't even know, grabbed my hand. I'm like, what is going on? And everybody formed a circle. She goes, we're ready for the message. In her grief, she forgot to tell me that they asked me to give the funeral message. So with about 15 seconds, I had to prepare mentally for giving my own brother's message. And immediately it was just, what do we talk about? Because there's unsaved people there. So I went by memory to, because I couldn't even get to notes, I guess I'm standing there in a circle and sharing Revelation 21 and verse 4, which we'll talk about, that in heaven, Bruce as a believer has no more pain. He is never in fear of dying. He has no more sorrow, no more depression. And I went through that. Well, I went back afterwards. We had no decisions, and I laid the seeds out for salvation on there. But I went back to his house, and as I said, I'm absolutely devastated. I am. I can tell you, spiritually, I know Bruce is in heaven. But there were so many questions I had. Like I said, this was when I was 52. I'm 65 now. So I sat on the back porch of his home. They allowed me to stay there and my two sons until we headed back. And I had stuffed into my satchel every book I could think of on the way down to Florida about grieving by Christian authors about heaven. And I will tell you something, Pastor, I was going through them, and there was one book. I sat on his back patio and read a book and never got up. I was in such grief. I read it from front to back in one sitting, and I put it down totally dissatisfied. It basically said, this is the way life is until we get to heaven. You're going to be this way. Told nothing about heaven. It was like one verse and explanation and supposition and conjecture, and I thought, that's not what I want. I want to know, in the Bible, what's Bruce doing right now? Is he taller? Is he stronger? Does he see Jesus? Can he hug Jesus? Does he recognize others of the faith and family members of the faith? I wanted to know everything, and I was going through book after book after book. And it might be, here's a nice verse, a hallmarky card, greeting card kind of verse. And now let me just talk to you about anecdotes. This is not what I want. I want every available verse. And if it doesn't say it in the Bible, I don't want to hear it. Now, I know that sounds awful arrogant, and I hope you understand, but I was under deep grief, and I was losing my patience, book after book after book. Now, I finally did find some that were given to me by beloved spiritual mentors and such, but that's what really started the ministry. I wanted to know exactly what happens, and I don't want to go into NDEs, near-death experiences. I don't want to talk about visions or dreams because one person says one thing one way, somebody else says, well, I saw this, and then we get all of these books that have been put out very popular, and they're not biblical in their nature, about people dying and becoming angels, and all of this. Let's just go, and then, if the Bible says it, let's teach it. If the Bible doesn't say it, let's openly say the Bible doesn't say it, or this is an area that we're not going to pursue as if it's a doctrine of truth, and let's let the Bible speak. When I started teaching this, then we had down the road a church, and one of our teachers got me on a late Friday afternoon, and she said, Brad, you're ordained, right? And I said, yes, ma'am. She says, our pastor had a massive heart attack. He's okay, but he can't go back in the pulpit for a long time, and he might never be able to go back. And this just happened like yesterday. Would you be able to fill in our pulpit? And she says, our deacon is going to call you if you say yes within the next half an hour. We're desperate. So it's Saturday, then Sunday morning. And I said, well, I'll be glad to. Let me call my wife, and then I'll tell my home church what I'm doing. And I said, what would you want? The deacon calls, and I said, what would you want? Do you have a special a line of teaching right now? And he goes, oh, look, preach whatever you want. Heaven. It's the first time. And I'm teaching this in a church in Halls, Tennessee. And as I was speaking, everybody is just staring at my forehead. There's a lot of forehead here, so they got plenty of room to stare. And they're staring, and I'm thinking, it's not going over. And I'm going through these passages, and they're all like this. Not a response. And I thought, well, I've done what I could, but I'm really committed to this, but I guess maybe, it's... And when I'm leaving, the deacon comes up and says, Brad, could you... and I'm one of the last ones to leave. I was talking with some people. He says, could you come back next Sunday? And I said, really, Larry? I thought this wasn't going... He says, we're shocked. He says, we've never heard this before. He says, our pastor, 38 years here, bless his heart, he's a wonderful man, but you gave more scripture in probably the first 15 minutes than he's given in the past 3 months. Because we just don't bathe ourselves in scripture. And you kept telling us to take notes. He says, we're going into the golf pencils and the things. We just don't take notes. He goes, so we want to know more about this. And so I stayed. I was supposed to stay for one Sunday. I stayed for almost 6 months on there. And that's where this started to grow. And other churches were saying, could you come over on a Wednesday night, or could you come to our Bible study? And that's what really started the ministry. So the name of the ministry is The Heaven Tour. You can find it on, we do have theheaventour.com. I have those refrigerator cards that you call them. They're out there on the table. If you take it and pray for us. I do have 1-minute videos, 1 minute long, 60 seconds long, on YouTube. And it's under The Heaven Tour with Brad, or The Heaven Tour. And what I found is this generation is hesitant to watch a 30-minute message or a 20-minute message, but 60 seconds. And I had a background as a copywriter in radio, broadcasting, early in my ministry. And so I was used to writing 1-minute commercials. And so it was right down the line. That expanded over into what's called TikTok, and there's an open field there. And so what we thought was maybe a couple of 100 people following, right now, my memory, if my memory's correct, on YouTube right now, I have 58,000 followers. And on TikTok, it's just short of 175,000 followers. And so now the Lord's opened up the door. This last week, we're starting on Twitter X, and I'm going to be doing live broadcasts on those as well. And then I have a podcast, which we thought would have 1,000 downloads. And a volunteer group out in California told us that right now, we have 70,000 downloads. And I go through the book of Revelation verse by verse, and among other things. And so that's about the background. During the course of the week, I might bring some things in. But let's go into what we're talking about here. What would you want to know? Okay, so what did I want to know? When Bruce died, when the doctor said he was dead before he hit the floor, was Bruce in heaven? We'll talk about that this morning. But there's something else that I want to share with you. And I'll start with this, and I'll keep an eye on the clock here. As a matter of fact, that's the very thing, time. What I find out when I travel is people have a lot of questions, and you are more than welcome to introduce questions, and I'll take them during the course of the week during the Eternal Issues Bible Conference on these things. But here is one thing that I've found out numerous times in my ministry, whether my feet are on the ground at your assembly or it's online, and somebody says this: I don't understand forever. We're supposed to go to heaven, and the idea of eternity absolutely terrifies me. I know we're going to be in the presence of God, but I cannot grasp this. This is terrifying. And those are the words, terrifying. I am absolutely petrified this. And so can you help us? Because what happens when we step over this threshold and we move into eternity is that we're going to be where the Bible says, when time shall be no more. We're going into a universe, an existence of timelessness. I mean, what kind of a Twilight Zone existence is this going to be? And what I tell people is, if we go to the Bible, we can find peace. Now, what I'm going to ask for you to do, and I'm going to ask very imploringly, but also sternly, if you at all take notes, all right? Now, I do believe we're being recorded. Is that correct, Pastor Brian? If you're unable to, and you say, well, watch this later on, but do write these down. As a matter of fact, I want to start with this. When I started studying in heaven, I started marking down, filling out notebooks. And I do mean filling notebooks. And all of a sudden I realized it's just everywhere. And so what I did was, I'm going to show you an example. I went down to Walmart and I bought a $4 journal. This is not a Bible, this is a journal. You buy it, it's empty, and I started alphabetizing it myself. Put it up in the corner, And I did about every 5 pages. And when I came along to something, I would go there for quick attributes of God under A, angels, afterlife in the book of Psalms, under E, the emotions in heaven, or eternality, or what is this about the elders, okay? I want to encourage you, when you find anything on your own or during this week, take your notes and make your own Bible encyclopedia. And you would be surprised at how many times somebody will ask me something. I said, well, let me go here and then let me read this to you. This is not a diary. This is not, I don't have little, cartoons over or how I feel. This is a Bible dictionary specifically on heaven. It's very obsessive on heaven. So when they ask a question, I can go here. The only writing you will see, and our friends up front might be able to see this, this is a reference on what that location was about. So I can say this, and then I'll ask people, would you want me to read it to you? So I want to encourage you to take notes if you can, or else if you replay the video and take notes. Because here's the reason why. You say, well, I'm okay, but you may have a friend, because this happens with many of our Christian friends. They're going to ask you a question about this. You're like, oh, man, he talked about that, but I didn't write it down, all right? And this is important, okay? So I want to encourage you very much to write some things down. I want to start on this. There's about 15 other places that I kept thinking over the course of these months when I talked with Pastor Brian about where I'd go. But I'll start with this morning just to introduce this. So we're talking about something terrifying. And I was speaking to a Bible study in California, and the young man, he's probably near 40, but he had just been saved for a couple of years, and he said, Brad, I'll just be honest with you, this is what really scares me. He goes, this idea. He goes, we have heard a song that says, when the trumpet of the Lord shall sound, and time shall be no more. And so we're going into, and he's an engineer type. He goes, I can't grasp this. And I said, let me start with this. Okay, so I'm going to start with this one. He is quoting from Revelation chapter 10 and verse 6. That's where that song came from. It's a wonderful song. I remember growing up with it, but it's not doctrinally accurate. When the trumpet of the Lord shall sound and time shall be no more. That's a wonderful phrase, but that is taken from Revelation chapter 10 and verse 6. And in that passage, it is telling us that the angel is now making an announcement in the course of the end times, where the Revelation chapter 6 verses 9 through 10, whenever the martyrs are coming up saying, Lord, when is your justice going to be enacted? How long will it be? Among others, the prayer through the ages. And he says, a little while longer. Revelation 10 and verse 6, the angel steps forward and says, okay, the delay will be no more. The word in Revelation 10:6 is not that time will be no more, it's the delay will be no more, all right? Is there time in heaven? Absolutely. Where do you see it? Number of places. In heaven, as John is writing, I'll start you with Revelation chapter 6. Verses 9 through 11. The martyrs go toward the Lord, and they are asking him questions, which is also interesting. Will we learn in heaven? Yeah, they're asking him questions. They want to learn. Some people say, oh, we'll go into heaven and we'll automatically know everything. That's a very noble thing, but that's not true. Only God is omniscient. They come and they say, we want to know how much longer before justice enacts. He does not say, how dare you? There's no such thing as time. What do you? They ask. They're in heaven. John is writing this. They're in heaven, and he answers them in kind. He says, in the affirmative, a little while longer. So God in heaven is using the reference, the algorithm of time. Revelation chapter 8 and verse 1. Everything's going on. Consider it as if you were standing down in the middle of Times Square during the Christmas season. Everything's going on, and then it stops. Everything is stock still. And no doubt, John is like, what just happened? And he says, everything has gone silent for the space of about a half an hour. Now, was there an algorithmic, was there, a digital clock or an analog clock standing up there, and he goes, oh, that's about 30. No, he's giving an estimate. But he has the ability to give an estimate of how long it is, a reference to time. Revelation chapter 22, in the opening, Revelation chapter 22. As a matter of fact, I neglected. I was going to read that to you as we got started here. If you'd like to, go with me in Revelation because I absolutely love reading two of the most comforting passages. This is interesting, Pastor. I had, when I started this ministry, I injured my leg, and I was unable to do yard work for a while, so we had a handyman come around and do work for us. And so when I was over there thanking him and getting ready to pay him, he goes, "So, mister, tell me what you're doing." And I told him about the ministry, the Heaven Tour, and he said, "Do you teach from Revelation?" And I said, "Oh, Richard," I said, "that's a bulk of it," and such. He goes, "This is absolute truth." He said, "My pastor has told us, little church down the road here in South Carolina, he said from the pulpit, I will not teach you from Revelation. I refuse to because it's too scary." This is my handyman. And I said, "Oh, Richard, that breaks my heart, because for me, two of the most comforting chapters in the Bible for the believer are Revelation chapter 21 and Revelation chapter 22. You are seeing where we are going to spend when we're with God's home in eternity, okay? Revelation chapter 22, "And he showed me a pure river of the water of life, clear as crystal, proceeding out of the throne of God and of the Lamb. In the midst of the street of it, and on either side of the river was there the tree of life, which bare 12 manner of fruits, and yielded her fruit every month. And the leaves of the tree were for the healing of the nations." Boy, there's a ton we can talk about there. There's no more curse and such. But look at this. There's another reference to time here. The leaves of the tree yielded her fruit every month. Now, no matter where we go with an explanation of that, there's another reference of time. And I'll remind you, we're in heaven. Okay, so you're saying, great. Okay, so then we're saying, I'll see you tomorrow. Then there's another tomorrow, and another tomorrow, and another tomorrow. Now, let me explain something very carefully as we start talking about heaven. Point, a huge point, and circle this in your notes. Heavenly time is not the same as earthly time. It is not in any sense of the word, and I will show you the Bible on this. Virtually every month, someone will write me or on a live broadcast, a live stream, and they'll say this: "How old will we be when we get to heaven?" Or, if a child dies, a little one, and do babies go to heaven? And we'll talk about that. Absolutely, the infants, they go to heaven. Well, what age will they be in heaven? Or how old? Then somebody else will come on. This happens all the time. Well, we'll all be 33, because that's when Jesus ascended. Well, that's a very noble thing. Could you show me in the Bible where it says that? And the answer is there's nowhere in the Bible, okay? And I tell them this, and I want you to understand this as we walk through this. When we start asking about things like, what about tomorrow and tomorrow and tomorrow and years to come and how old will it be? You're using an earthly measurement that doesn't apply to heaven. Where do I get this? 2 Peter chapter 3 and verse 8. 2 Peter chapter 3 and verse 8. Where Peter is talking as they are being mocked. Well, it looks like Jesus ain't coming. It's been 2,000 years and, to us right now, and they're saying it's been so long. And Peter says, whoa, 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 whoa. You need to understand something. 2 Peter chapter 3 and verse 8. When you're talking about this measurement, heaven, earthly time, a day is as 1,000 years, and 1,000 years is as a day, all right? Now, what that does is that totally explodes anything. They're not even close. See, you're not saying a day on earth is like a day and a half in heaven, all right? Now, if this is hyperbolic, it's just telling you, they're not even close, all right? Now, tie that into Psalm 90, the opening verses. And it tells you of the many attributes of God we know by his name. One of his names is El Olam, O-L-A-M. El is for God. Olam is the Hebrew word for time. He's the God of time. He's the God who makes time. He's the everlasting God. Psalm 90. From everlasting to everlasting, you are God. And as you continue to read through there, it says this: in your presence, Lord, 1,000 years is as the passing of the afternoon. In your presence, Lord, 1,000 years is as a watch in the night. Are you getting the idea? That it's totally different. Isaiah chapter 57 and verse 15. Isaiah 57 and verse 15. God tells us, I inhabit eternity. He is not within this realm. Now, C.S. Lewis, in this magnificent book, and I rarely recommend books outside of the Scripture because I feel we should read the Scripture as much as possible. But I will say this, if there was one book I would recommend for believers, both to witness and also for encouragement, C.S. Lewis' book, Mere Christianity, M-E-R-E, Mere Christianity. Go to about chapter 21, and it's called Time and Time Again. And he explains all this, and he says, basically, I want you to imagine a meter stick. This is Britain, okay? And we would say a yardstick. And is God obedient to the meter stick? No, he can move up and down there and measure anything he wants to. He is not held and restricted within it. This is his creation. This is time. And he says, during this, he has all eternity to review the sincerity of a pilot, because this is World War II when he's writing this is being transcribed, to inspect the sincerity of a pilot who is 4 seconds away from his plane hitting the side of a mountain and calls out to Jesus for salvation. He has all eternity. We say, well, he's squeezed in there. No. He is above time. Time is his creation. Time is not a God over him. This is why when people ask me, who created God? I said, already you've shot yourself in the foot in the conversation because you're acting. When you said created, you just used the past tense as if God has to be obedient to the threefold steps of the dimension of time, past, present, and future. And I said, that's just not so. God is over time. He inhabits eternity. Now, there's something else which is very, very important to understand is when we talk about the joys of heaven. And time is one of them. We fear time. Time degenerates. Time erodes. Time, we're under deadlines, we're under stress. And we see aging. All right? And then I look back as I'm traveling by myself in melancholy about how fast my kids grew up, or how gentle this was when we had a Christmas time with both of my in-laws who are now in eternity in heaven and how I miss them. And we talk about these things, and it brings on melancholy, right? You know, we see this because these things move and then they go on. When we take a look at this and then we say this, time is, it doesn't really treat us well here. We talk about this, and it ages us, and then it just causes depression even sometime, all right? Is this so? And so when I came to a passage in Romans chapter 8, verses 19 through 22, it hit about 2 years ago as I was studying this. In Romans chapter 8, verses 19 through 22, I'm going to paraphrase this for time's sake, and it says this, everything is under the curse. At this time, everything is under the curse. Think about it. The previous chapter, Paul says, I'm having problems. This is the Apostle Paul. The good that I want to do, I don't do. The bad that I don't want to do, I end up doing. Wretched man that I am, who will deliver me from this body of sin? Jesus Christ, the last verse in that chapter, he's under battle. He is facing the curse, and we're all, under this, everything. Romans chapter 8, verses 19 through 22. All creation is under the curse. It's groaning for the liberty to be released. Everything? We will tend to think, yeah, animals, people, traffic jam, IRS, barking dogs, yeah, we're okay. Take it further. What did it say? The Greek word for all is all, right? Weather, time. Now, you might say, Brad, I knew that from all over, but I'm a little dense, okay? Now, listen to this, all right? Right now, we think time is amoral. It's just neutral. Everything is under the curse. Then go to Revelation 21 and verse 5. Revelation 21 and verse 5, Jesus on the throne says this, behold, which really means pay attention. I'm making all things new. I'm making all things new. The word for new, I will express this numerous times this week. I want you to write this down. And this is a Greek word, and I will not become uppity, but I do want you to know this. It's so valuable to know certain Greek words. The word for new in the Greek is not the same as the American English word for new. Because I can say this, well, this is a new book. All right, that's the word in the Greek, neos. It just means newer in age. But the word for new here in Revelation 21 and verse 5 is kainos. I'll spell it for you. If we're going to spell it in English and then put it in called English transliteration, take the Hebrew word, the Greek lettering and make it English. K-A-I-N-O-S. One more time. K-A-I-N-O-S. Kainos is how you pronounce it. You know what it means? Never been used before. intimates, never been imagined before. And if you want to use a one-word definition, unprecedented. Unprecedented. See, this is not a kainos book. I've seen books before. But unprecedented, something we've never experienced. When we get to heaven, and we'll talk about this morning, everything is unprecedented. Buildings, weather, you. The Bible tells us in 1 Corinthians chapter 15, the difference between you right now, Christian, and you then, you can compare to an acorn against an oak tree. Grasp that for a while. That took me about a week just to be able to grasp the edge of that. All right? Everything is unprecedented. Unprecedented. Relationships are unprecedented. Walk with God's unprecedented. The atmosphere is unprecedented. Music is unprecedented. Everything. And so will be time. Well, what's that like, Brad? I have no idea, right? It's going to be perfect. Right now, my mom, my dad, and my oldest brother are in heaven. And Hebrews chapter 12, verses 22 and 23 say this. They are in their spirit. Their bodies have not gone. Okay, the bodies are still here, buried on earth. But they're in heaven right now, and the righteous ones, the spirits of the righteous one, are being made perfect, made complete. And they're in the temporary abode known as the present heaven, which will then open up, as we'll talk about, into, as 2 Peter says, the present heavens and the present earth will then be taken away in a renovation in which Bible scholars discuss this. Does this mean a total obliteration or as tight a renovation as the Greek language will allow? It's up for a discussion there. But we do know this. The new heaven and new earth, Revelation 21, verses 1 and 2, is talking about the new Jerusalem. That word for new is the same word, kainos. And I saw unprecedented heavens surrounding an unprecedented earth. And then coming down from heaven was Jerusalem. I'd never seen Jerusalem like this. And John knew what Jerusalem looked like. It's unprecedented. And then we start looking around. All things are new. You're new, all right? And I'm new. And the walkways are new. And the music's new. And the love is new. And the temperature's new. And the gravity's new. Everything is new. And within that, time is new. So this is one of the things that it's very important that I want you to hear. As we talk through the eternal issues during the course of this week, numerous times, and you have the right to, and when you write a question to me, if you want to keep it anonymous, I will not say, okay, who wrote this one? Did you write this? I'm not going to do that, all right? Because somebody might say, don't call on me, but this is a question, and I'm very bothered. And you can be, as elaborate as you want to, and you can see the notes out there for that. But in there, I want you to write down these principles with everything that we talk about during the course of this, the conference, is this. The baseline is this. You have made a conscious decision, and you said, yes, as I did at the age of 17, I was a lawbreaker, and no, I will not go over my testimony. I don't feel it's profitable. And I grew up with a number of speakers coming up and spending 95% of the time talking about themselves and, oh yeah, Jesus saved me and everything. We go away looking at the messenger rather than the message. I will not do that. I'm just going to say this. I was in trouble with the law. I'm ashamed of it. I'm thankful that the Lord will not bring this up, but I want to say this. I came to the Lord in my bedroom. I locked the door, closed the door, got on my knees, and gave it all to Him. As little as I knew, Jesus, take it all. Take my past, take my sins, take my future, take me. And in that, when I called upon Him, then I now started learning through there about the hope and the joy of heaven. With that, in salvation, when you are a follower of the Lord, John chapter 10, verses 27 through 30, my sheep hear my voice and I know them because they follow me. We're followers, not just a mental assent, all right? So I'm heading to heaven. What's the baseline if you're talking with somebody and say, but I'm afraid of this and I don't understand that? Well, let's start with this. Psalm 16, verse 11. Psalm 16, verse 11. Lord, in your presence is fullness of joy. Fullness of joy. Don't brush that off. I'm going to use the term again. Don't go Hallmark on me. That's a pretty saying, move on. No, stop, listen to this. This is very important. This is the Lord saying, when you come into my presence, Christian, you will never be more joyful than you will be when you're with me. No matter what else, the details, it doesn't matter. You have a guarantee. Titus 1:2, God cannot lie. Hebrews 6:18, it's impossible for God to lie. Romans 3 and verse 4, let every man be a liar, but let God be true. And he said, when you are in my presence, you will have fullness of joy. Second one, Psalm 17 and verse 15. Psalm 17, verse 15. When I see your likeness, I will be satisfied. I'm completely content. So what's time going to be like, Brad? I don't know. I'll repeat what Amos said in chapter 7 and verse 14. I'm not a prophet or the son of a prophet. I don't have the right to go into conjecture, and I will not. All I know is this. I'll go back to Psalm 16:11, Psalm 17:15. Whatever it is, I will be completely satisfied, full of joy. Isaiah 51 and verse 11, and that joy will never go away. Isaiah 51:11, everlasting joy will be on our heads. We will be there. See, here's the thing. This is, help me out now, this is October 20th, right? Okay, so we're less than 2 months away. October, November, December. Yeah, just about 2 months away from this time at our house. And I need to share this with you because I don't think my wife and my daughter, they're over in Tennessee right now at a fall fest, and they were unable to make it up here over there. And so I don't think they're watching right now. I think they're in church. They should be. So I'm going to say something. They are really wicked to me in December, in mid-December. Here's what they do. I come home, and they bring in this giant plant, and they put it in the corner of the room, and then they cover it with electronics, blinking electronics. And then they hang, indescribable, nothing matches. There's some memento from here. There, I don't understand this. Then they go ahead, and then they start taunting me by putting stuff they know I'd like in boxes, taping them shut, then wrapping them, and then putting more binding over them and putting my name on them. They're just teasing me. And I am terrified when I go through the living room because underneath there, all of these things with my name on it, and I can't get at them. And I'm terrified because all of these things I don't understand. And I run screaming through the room all the time because I'm terrified of the unknown, right? Christmas presents, all right? I have a general idea of what they're going to get, a general idea. I get surprised every year. But you know, in all of these years, since we've been married and had our children, I have never once been disappointed in any of the Christmas presents they got me because I know they're in love with me and they care about me and everything. But I'll start reaching over and they'll go, You can kind of touch it, Dad. You can't open it. It's not time. Do you understand what I'm saying? So we go through the mysteries of heaven, and I don't understand why Christians start saying, I panic, I don't understand, and this is causing me. Look, it's not time yet. I've been teaching these for the better part of 13 years. I've been teaching heaven, and one of our board